Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Most Merciful. I'd like to welcome you, dear viewers, to another in our series, Those in the Shade of Allah's Throne. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. This series focuses on a particular hadith or prophetic statement which was narrated to us by Abu Hurairah, in which Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam said,
عن أبي هريرة عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أنه قال: سبعة يظلهم الله تعالى في ظله يوم لا ظل إلا ظله، إمام عادل، وشاب نشأ في عبادة الله، ورجل قلبه معلق بالمساجد، ورجلان تحابا في الله اجتمعا عليه وتفرقا عليه، ورجل دعته امرأة ذات منصب وجمال فقال: إني أخاف الله، ورجل تصدق بصدقة فأخفاها حتى لا تعلم شماله ما تنفق يمينه، ورجل ذكر الله خاليا ففاضت عيناه.
Abu Hurairah related from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam that he said, 7 will be shaded by Allah Almighty on a day when there will be no other shade besides His shade. A just ruler, a youth who grows up worshipping Allah, a man whose heart is attached to the mosques, 2 men who love each other for the sake of Allah. They meet on the basis of it and separate on the basis of it. A man who is invited by a woman of high position and beauty, and he replies, "Indeed, I fear Allah." A man who gives charity and hides it so much so that his left hand is unaware of what his right hand gave. And a man who remembers Allah in private, and his eyes become filled with tears. In our previous segment, we looked at the shared meanings in all of these categories. How the love of Allah and the fear of Allah was shared by each group, the individuals of each group. Also the consciousness of Allah, that all were aware of Allah. And this is what led them to be a part of this group. Furthermore, we looked at the fact that all of the categories are interrelated. One is a product of the other. One is related and affects the other. And fourthly, we were looking at the fact that in each of the groups, there is a struggle against desire. We talked about the Imam and how he has to overcome his desire to abuse his position of power, to wield his power without any kind of control, to be unjust. He has to overcome his desire to do so. The young person growing up has to also fight against his desires to not be involved in the many distractions that are in front of him in this life. Thirdly, the 2 people, the person whose heart is attached to the masjid, who is always going and praying in the masjid. Such a person is one who has to overcome his desires in the sense that this life is very busy. We have so many things to do. This is why some people, when they hear the idea that a Muslim has to pray 5 times a day, they said, how can you do that? There's so many, life is so complicated, so many responsibilities. How can one take time out to go and pray 5 times a day? But the reality is that one overcomes one's desires to utilize one's time merely in the pursuit of the things of this world. He has to overcome that desire and go on to the mosque and be linked to the mosque, to regularly seek the mosque. Furthermore, the people who meet together only for the sake of Allah, and they separate only for the sake of Allah. The desire is that we meet each other and are friendly with each other on the basis of the benefits that we get from people. This is how people, generally speaking, function in relationships. I need something from you, so I'll be your friend. Or you are giving me things, so I'm your friend. These are the usual bases. Now, for somebody to just be friends without seeking any reward out of it, because that friendship is just for the sake of Allah, meaning that I will fulfill your needs. I'm not seeking for you to fulfill my needs. If there's anything you need, I will come to your aid, because I am seeking reward from Allah and the pleasure of Allah. A person has to overcome the desire for friendship based on need. Similarly, because there's a common saying we should mention here, a friend in need is a friend indeed. This is focusing on that same issue, that person who's going to help you, this is your real friend. One who's not going to help you when you need it is not a friend. Whereas friendship for the sake of Allah is not on this basis. Whether a person comes to your aid when you need it, or he doesn't come to your aid when you need it, you are that person's friend for the sake of Allah, because it is pleasing to Allah. He is regularly in the masjid, he's a good person, then you love that person, you maintain a friendship with that person for the sake of the fact that it is pleasing to Allah. And of course, the young man, or the man who overcomes that invitation, who rejects that invitation to corruption from a powerful, rich, and beautiful woman, that is definitely overcoming desires. That doesn't require too much explanation. And of course, the person who gives charity, the desire is to be known, to be praised. Now, you have to overcome that desire to be known, to be thanked, that people will speak well of you. You have to overcome that desire, which is a natural desire on the part of humans. You overcome that desire and seek your reward only with Allah. And the last category is that of the person who remembers Allah by himself and tears comes to the eyes. Now, again, the desire is that we don't have time to sit and remember God. We're busy. Our life is complicated, complex. We don't have time. So we have to overcome our desire to want to spend our time in the material things, the material world. Chop out a piece of time and just reflect on God. This requires definitely overcoming the desires. Now, the next point which is worth looking at with regards to this hadith is whether in fact this hadith is relevant to males only, because the hadith does speak about a just ruler, and the term used for ruler is imamun adil, which these are male terms, and then a young man who grows up worshipping Allah, and so on and so forth. So one may draw from this that this is only relevant to males. However, as the scholars have pointed out, Ibn Hajar and others, that this mention of males is not really relevant in this hadith. All of the categories have aspects which are relevant to females also. So though we're talking about males in general, it refers to females. And this in Arabic is a standard procedure, in the Arabic language, whether we're talking about the Quran or whether the hadith, or just in conversation. People may use Arabic phrases that are specific for males, and when it's used, it includes both males and females. Now, of course, when we look at the actual categories, one may exclude women from some aspects. The aspect, for example, of the Imamun Adil, the ultimate Imam, the one who is the head of state, who is the head of the Muslim world, to whom bay'ah is given, the oath of allegiance is given, which is required of the Muslims. That person should not be a woman. Prophet Muhammad ﷺ had said that a people who puts a woman over their affairs, in the ultimate sense as ruler, will never succeed. They will fail. So as a general principle in Islamic law, the ultimate leadership is not put in the hands of females. However, females may be leaders in limit in other capacities within the society. They may have their own businesses and they're the head of their business. They are also the head of their families. The children are under their protection.